And so when David Timon came to see you and said, look, there's a serious problem, we're going to have to build new stairwells, and that's quite considerable because of all the miles of cabling and pipework that I've inspected, and I'm sure you've inspected, and the implications relating to that. And we could get on to all the jointing that was a problem with the previous cabling, which all had to be replaced. Did he tell you how much that was going to cost in his estimate?
So obviously part of the revised costings that Mr Timon provided to the committee earlier in the summer reflected that, but until there is a full conclusion over what the MCA is going to accept in terms of the final design, that's why we need to wait for that until we get the full picture. But you're right, the problems, many of the problems that we're facing are due to original design issues, and convener, if you have been round 801, you'll have had that pointed out to you as I did. We're still living with that, and will do up until these ferries are signed off and handed over. Obviously, we're looking to try to ensure that Ferguson Marine are taking as much action as possible, as early as possible, with 802 to mitigate as far as possible in learning from what has happened with 801 to ensure that the impact on 802, both in terms of cost and delivery time, is lessened, but some of that is going to be unavoidable. And that's why I continue to engage, obviously, as you'd expect, both myself and my officials on a weekly basis with Ferguson Marine and on a regular basis at ministerial level to ensure that we're delivering these ferries for our island communities as quickly as we possibly can.
And they've been waiting. Goodness knows they've been waiting, which you would accept. So it would be helpful in that letter, Cabinet Secretary, if you could itemise the cost for 801. And in fairness, that when David Timon, I think, wrote to the committee in June, it was before this problem came to light. So I don't believe the extra additional costs that he alluded to there related to these issues that have come about from the MCA. But I suspect there will be considerable additional costs, and it would be helpful to know what those are. And it would be helpful to know if you then, on the back of those, if you'd known about those costs, whether you would have still used the ministerial direction to instruct that the costs for the ferries would still be built, despite the fact that they weren't cost effective. Because if we'd known about those costs when you made that decision, it might have reviewed your position. And one other point, just to clarity on that when it comes to the additional costs. What concerns me is that the costs will be considerable, because you will then have to go through the whole design structure as well, will you not, to make sure that it's fit for class, not just fit for MCA standards. Will that delay the ferries coming into service to make sure that everyone's happy with all the changes to the design, the insurers and all the people who supplied all the equipment? Will it affect any of their warranties? So
there's a number of questions in that. I'll try and take them in turn. And first one, in terms of the authority that I gave to proceed, that was specifically in relation to 802, not 801, because 801 is close to delivery, and so there was no issue in terms of the cost there. On 802. Obviously, I would have needed to consider any additional cost overrun. I continue to consider that as to whether or not it continues to be, in my view, with the wider elements that I have a responsibility to consider in terms of the local economy, in terms of those island communities having those ferries as quickly as possible. I suspect I would still have given ministerial authority, given what we know now. In terms of the points that you make around the further regulatory interactions, I know that Ferguson's continue to discuss these matters with Lloyds, continue to have an iterative sign-off process for that, and that will continue. I obviously hope that that process won't be impacted by what we're currently discussing. And in terms of the manufacturer's warranty, that's obviously matters that CalMac are responsible for in terms of and the negotiations that are there between on the warranty side between Ferguson's and CalMac, and I know that those discussions will be ongoing, and where it's required, obviously, I will ensure that I am kept abreast of that and ensure that CalMac get the ferries as quickly as possible, but also in a way that meets with the contracted demands as well.
I'm just struggling in my brain, Cabinet Secretary, that it was over 4 years ago, the 16th of August, I think, 2019, that the government nationalised Ferguson Marine, and you've been in charge of it. And what I don't understand is how we're in a situation that just before the ferry is to be ready and for handover for sea trials to CalMac, that we suddenly come up with a whole list of other faults that no one knew about. I guess that if I'd been running a business for 4 years and I was in that position, somebody would ask me to consider whether I was in the right position. So I pose that. I look forward to your answers. I think they are very, very serious. And I think we need to question who knew what, because I don't believe these have come out of the blue. So I'll look forward to them. And I look forward to getting the update from David Timon at the end of September, where all the costs and delivery times will be laid out for the committee in great detail, I guess, after today's meeting.